Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, from the Great Midwest. I have RDV joining me here, broadcasting to you, of course, from the Extreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida, here in the Pine Hills Palace. And it's mid-August here. RDV in Central Florida, the heat index is only 116 as opposed to 119 earlier. Hasn't rained in a few days, which is a little odd. But there is a bit of a change in here. Some might go, school started. Some may say football's around the corner with preseason. Others may go, hey, it's the shitty time of year where movies that come out suck or whatever because we're going to dump something called The Last Voyage of the Demeter at it. And I definitely feel like that's what happened with this film, considering it was supposed to come out at the beginning of the year. I want to talk about this film with you. I kind of want to go a little bit in order, which is what we don't do sometimes. Just simply because I want to address some of the criticisms people had about it. I saw it today. I enjoyed it a lot. I kind of see what some people are criticizing it for, but I would totally disagree on it. I think this is a very solid film. I think it's the type of film that should be made more of in terms of the approach. I'll get more specific about it. And I will state the obvious. I think great looking film, well acted. Some people might get a little offended at one part that might be considered PC if we choose to go down that route, but I will refute that, as it were, at least present another side to it. The music was fine. Bear McCreary, who does a lot of things. And the ending was a little different, but it was exactly, they knew what they wanted to do with it, and I did not have a problem with it. That being said, the scariest Dracula ever for me was, I mean, you talk about Nosferatu all you want and Bela Lugosi with those cute eyes. It was always the made-for-TV movie Salem's Lot, the two-part with James Mason in it, and the creepy floating one in there, Barlow or whatever. I got to say, I think this has the best-looking Dracula in it. Overall, I like the film a lot. It's pretty much what I thought it was going to be. I'm curious what you thought.
For me, I was never a fan of the Bram Stoker Dracula, Gary Oldman. He looked like he had testicles on his head, like basically like how they did Mr. Burns as him.
Mm-hmm.
I never cared for that whole wig thing stuff, But this is taken right out of the book though, which I love. Whether you love the 1992 version, even though that's the closest adaptation there is to the book, this is a story they never told. This is a story that's in the book only, and this is the whole thing going from I guess Romania to London, and then the sailors getting picked off one by one. And it's just awesome. They built an actual boat replica of what this Demeter would be, just so they could film inside it to make it, because they didn't want to rely on all the CG. Of course, there's a storm in here. The waves, that's CG, which still looked awesome.
Yes,
I thought it looked great. Dracula itself in here, you can tell you learn in this is that his character he looks so frail, so skinny. He almost looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings a little bit.
He does.
In the scenes, because we learn from the girl. They find the girl in the dirt, Anna, and she's got all these bite marks over. Apparently she was sent along with him for him to feed on while he travels.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains why he's so skinny again, because she says, in my country they ran out of people for him to eat.
Yes.
So he's so frail. So then as he starts feeding on the sailors one by one, he starts bulking up because he doesn't have the wings until towards the third act.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets much more disturbing. I did not look at any online reviews or actually didn't really see much of it on Twitter at all for reactions, but just looking at the fact that this is a gothic horror. The ending was still a good ending. It was a little bittersweet for me. When we get to that, we'll get to that. But Corey Hawkins' character playing the doctor on this. He ends up being rescuing the captain's grandson because one of the guys living in the crate saw the dragon on someone. He said he got spooked. He let go of the rope. The crate was going to fall down, and Corey Hawkins' character, Dr. Clemens, was basically saved the boy, and he was offered a spot on the ship because he needed help. And I saw that's how he gets on there, and I gotta say, his character, standout character. I love the fact that he's like, I'm a man of science. I really don't believe in all the hocus pocus. And then you had the cook on there, who was who was really religious, and everybody worked all their roles fit together. It's basically what you want from a straight up horror vampire movie, and we go back to what's the worst one? Dracula 3000. This was good. I love this. I mean, if you're gonna do like the man bat kind of like this, I think they did really well. For I mean, and I won't complain, you know, because you say, oh, it's Godzilla, and you can't really see the leg. For someone a creature this size, sticking to the shadows, it makes more sense. Having a Godzilla, you only see the leg and it's so dark and stuff. This being shot in the dark when he came out, it fits. It's natural. With the CG for him wasn't bad, but I really felt attached to the characters as the movie went on. Even especially little Toby, the grandson. Oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing with this movie. We've at least talked about, I want to say we reviewed a few years back, a surprise little smaller movie that was called The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This is directed by the same guy. So, you know, Ed's asking a chat about is the whole movie on the ship. Most of it is. I'd say a good 80 to 90% of it. The beginning and ending are not. And the fact that they created this big, large ship to film it all means there's a lot of buildup. And to me, this movie, if you go into it thinking it's an action film or it's a gore fest, you're going to be disappointed. It's really more of a thriller with some gory scenes in it, and I wouldn't even say there's really any action until the third act, and even then it seems sort of compressed. To me, yeah, I agree with you on a lot of things that you're saying. I think that as soon as we walked in there, some of the complaints that a lot of people were saying about the movie is, well, we know everybody dies. Well, okay. So let's see what the story is. Let's see what happens. And a lot of people were saying, well, it just doesn't make sense the script wise, because they should have just looked underneath and do this and do that. And, you know, they did do that. And it's a big ship. And they had no pun intended, a skeleton crew. And they did do it. But
they had about 8 men. I think about 8 people on the ship.
Yeah. And so
normally supposed to have about 20.
Yeah, aggressively mediocre. That's kind of an interesting way to describe it, because it is long. It's almost 2 hours long. I had no problems with pacing. I like a build up to a scene, and sometimes it runs out a little bit, and I don't think it did here, but the first 2 acts are the best. So if you want to argue about it, I would say the movie starts off and then I think reaches its peak in the middle and then slows down, because some of the action at the end with the flying around scenes and all that was cool, but I liked it early on when we, as you mentioned before about Godzilla, I really liked the 2014 movie where you don't see much of them and it's what's in your head, and that's what happens here. They treat the characters as professional, competent adults. Even young Toby, who's I think said he's almost 9 years old, has major responsibilities on the ship as his grandson.
They nailed it.
Yeah, and
the dog part.
Yeah, so obviously I was going upset because I know there'd be dog violence, which I can't stand, or even the thought of it in the movie. However, looked like a real dog. They handled it well, and even though I don't ever want to see that. So the thing with this is with Dracula, I don't want to hear him talk. I don't want him humanized. He's supposed to be a freak of nature, whatever you want to call it, whether you put in a religious aspect to it or not, which they didn't get into too much.
No.
I like the whole feral kind of animalistic nature of the character, and to me, just watching the opening scene, you know, it's storming out. You get a guy, you know, seeing something out of a ship, and the other guy goes, "Go tell the constable that ship's, you know, trying to get through," and run up on the shore, and it's storming out. Constable comes out, and the guy's standing there, and he's like crying. He's like, "I tried to go on the ship to find if there's anybody alive," and he's like, "Is there?" And he's like, "No," and he's like, "Well, what do you have in your hands?" And he goes, "The captain's log."
Yeah.
So you pick it up, and you get the voiceover.
Liam's Cunningham's awesome voice. I love it. When I hear his voice, I keep thinking it's Sam Neill.
Sam Neill.
Every single time, and I kept thinking, like, so his narration kept a log, and as you go out the movie, it was like July 6th, you know, and you know, entering into his journal, you hear it over the overhead while the things are going on. That really added to me the narration.
I like it too. When you have voiceover work, a lot of people bitch about it, but people even argue that, God, when Harrison Ford did it back with Blade Runner, you know, oh, it's this and that, and it's like, does it work? Does it help tell the story? Well, if it doesn't add to it, I'm okay with it.
It's like watching a Mike Hammer, you know, or a detective story. There's going to be a voiceover. This, you're hearing it from the captain. You know, of course, you know, going into the movies like this, you know everyone's gonna die. That's like going to a Jason movie or Freddy movie. There might be one survivor if you're lucky, or they might decide, you know, the ones, just kill everybody. You know what you're going in for. I went in there because it's the 1800s. They're on a ship in the middle of a storm, and they got Dracula on there, and you know damn well they're not going to survive. And I just love when they can do a Dracula story like this. You know, get away from the Mina Harkness bullshit. Just having him picking off people one by one. I laughed at this. You know, is when at the end is, you know, when Corey Hawkins, you know, he's being held up and he's like, I don't fear you. He's like, and he scratches his neck. He's like, you will, you know, like
that's a bit hokey.
I love that. You know, but I said, that kept it true to the book. I appreciate that. But the characters were fleshed out for most part. We have the cook really stood out to me. His whole religious, you know, not everybody else is like, you're a heathen, you're a criminal and stuff. This is God's punishment. He's punishing for his sins. He tries to flee. He gets picked off by Dracula, and the boat just kind of goes back into hits the main boat. Little guys, and they're like, oh shit, there's blood there. The whole scene, you know, at the end where Dracula's he has the power to create a mist, which, you know, is a cool power. I mean,
yeah, I don't know if I like that or not, to be honest with you.
Well, it's like the same thing as we watched Dracula Untold. He can create the bats. He had to control bats, or he can turn into bats.
Yeah,
but that's it's a vampire trait, though, turning into mist. Now, the whole thing as far as him flying around, I love hearing the whoosh, the flapping, because they can't see a damn thing, and they have guns, and guns don't do anything about vampires. Yeah. It hurts, but that's about it. What I thought was really cool, though, is that the cross, they didn't do anything. Even with the faith, the cross did not repel him.
That I thought was a good setup. I thought they could have milked that angle more, because obviously when we go in, you know, again, one of the big criticisms is, well, we know what's supposed to work against Dracula. You know, some people say, oh, garlic. Some people say this. I think in the book, technically, sunlight doesn't like kill him. It just makes him really weak or whatever. And so that's why they want to stay inside. Here they did the you know, everyone loves Blade. I mean, I still think it's the best comic book movie ever made, pretty much. It's up there for me with Wesley Snipes. But John Carpenter, 98, did that exact same thing in his movie Vampires with James Woods, which is funny. This movie, here's the thing, and Verity's making a comment about the characters. I will agree with a lot of people in the sense here, if they say the characters are one-dimensional. You know who they are, you know what their role is. Outside from Toby and the doctor maybe bonding a little bit early, you don't see a lot of it. This movie is very depressing, because you see like the sailors in there doing sailor things and hanging out, but at the same time, you don't see them really get a chance to bond a little bit or form these little things. So it's not like you get to see them do that and then they get to go take on the bad guys, which is like what we talk about, building that up. This movie is like target practice. You're setting everybody up, you know what's going on. And that first night, when they hear that thunk and then they see that a little bit of dirt just came out, I thought that's just a great of telling the audience, okay, you guys know what this is. Here's how I'm going to show you what's going on with it too. And I would tell you the best scenes of Dracula in here to me are the earlier ones when he's really, really weak and can hardly move at all. When they pulled the girl that he had stashed away out of the dirt, that was disgusting. It looked horrible, and I loved it. But the best scene for him to me was when the one guy's walking around and it's at night and it's raining, and I think it's the second night, and you just, the way it's shot is awesome. The guy goes around a little edge and he hears like a little weird sucking kind of sound, and he sees like this thing that looks like a wounded animal getting ready to die, and he's underneath it, and then he looks up and he's like, how the hell did you get here? And then of course he gets whacked. Oh, that was such a good looking scene. I mean, there's a lot of really nice shots in here.
Well, I love the whole thing that the movie is setting up. The whole knock of the Toby. We knock on the ship. Let everybody know all is clear. And it goes all the way towards the very end through the movie. And with the cane at the end. Knock, knock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm not sure if that was ever used, if they tried to connect this to the 1992 movie at all. Because, you know, this basically would have taken place in that movie. I don't know if they skipped over the whole him going to London. I didn't watch the movie.
Right. A lot of people think that's one of the best ones. It's very lush and very sexy, but some people said, how the hell can you have like Keanu in here? Like, you know, like whoa, it's a vampire, dude.
Yeah. So
It looks great. I won't
this
argue
sets
that.
up. There was no mention of Abraham Van Helsing at the end of this.
No.
Just the doctor towards the end. I would have been awesome maybe to been like, who are you? Stay here. We're the Van Helsings. That would have been cool. Something like that.
But this
Set
movie
up.
wanted, I think, honestly, and this is what I appreciate about it, they wanted to do their own thing and not give you any of that. Right?
I like I said, if they ever make a sequel to this, I might watch it, but I mean, it's not going to be as good as this because when you're in the middle of the ocean, you're on a ship like this, creaky and things are animals are draining their blood. People are freaking out, and they're like, "Oh, it's the girl! The girl did this!" It's like, and I noticed that Verity said she didn't like the girl how they used her. I thought the girl was used pretty well for me personally. I had no complaints with her. In the very beginning, as Rob said, when she reached out, I thought it was Dracula at first because in my head, I'm going through. Okay, now I know all the different things, as far as vampires hate sunlight. In order to cross water, they have to be on dirt. If they have, so that's why there's dirt on all these boxes.
But we don't even know that that's what the rules are going to be in this movie. Technically. That's the thing, like you said about the religion. We don't know that.
So sunlight works. We know that because when the guy gets bit and then he came out and then he, I forgot what his name is. But he tries to attack Toby, bang his head through the door, and then they're like, and they can't get it because the door's locked. But then you see Dracula inside with Toby in the captain's lot, and they're like, they see him and they're like, oh shit, and Toby's like, oh crap, he's holding the cross, and he's like, nope. And just scenes with that. I mean, the kid that plays Toby is awesome.
He was good. Yeah, it's hard for a kid to do that, and he was a natural.
And they're thinking, well, the blood transfusion, because the doctor gave Anna a transfusion in the beginning, and it seemed to bring her back a little bit.
Right.
Only for, I mean, this is a spoiler for the end for now. She says the transfusions only prolonged my death, my intimate death, because she got attacked by Dracula, saving the doctor. And he wraps her in his wings and then bites her, and then as far because we don't know how it works now, as the bite turns you, or because mostly when you feed on blood, that's when you turn. But barely in this movie here, he bit Toby, drained him of blood, and they tried giving him an eye transfusion, but the infection took over, and then when they're going to throw Toby overseas because he's dead, and then you see like that Liam Cunningham, the captain, he's like, oh, I just saw him move, and they're like, dude, you're distraught. We know it's your grandson. And then they pull it up, and he's also his eyes open up, and he's like, ah, he jumps on him, he's on fire. I was just like, oh my, I knew it was gonna happen. I was like,
yeah.
I mean, just throughout there's little jump scares. They're not really jump scares, but if they're like, they expect to have these. Yeah. So like I said, I pleasantly thought this was great.
This is not your kind of movie typically, so I didn't think you were going to like it, honestly.
Well, I like it when there's not too much gore. The
gore in here, I will say this. Yeah. I think you'll back me up on this. There isn't a lot of gore, but the gore that's in here is disgusting, and it works.
You see, the animals didn't bother me. Right. Now, when you see like the eyes roll back and the guys are in a trance and over, that's okay. That's fine. The gore I don't like is when he starts pulling the intestines out and all that stuff, and like or a needle in the eye, spoon like Saw, spoon the eyeball. That's the stuff I just don't care to watch because I want to eat it sometime. But when Dracula attacked the people, you see the fang goes right in there, and then that's about it, and they kind of pan away. But then all that's left is a blood stain there, which I thought was cool, more of a mystery because these people don't know what vampires are. She kind of explains. She was there to basically give the explanation that her village sacrificed by her. She was to be his meal ticket, and as they were transporting him. But then they go to then they realize, well, he's picking us off one by one, but he's actually saving us because he knows counting how many days left. Because that's the thing about too. Does Dracula have super hearing in this? Because I thought about that when they're making the plan to like take him out. I know she said he has a connection to her, so maybe he's getting his information through her.
Well, I don't know either.
Or he's hearing things. At that point, because I'm thinking like, We watch all these vampire movies and like write shit down. He can't see that shit. He can hear
Well,
it.
yeah, but that's the thing too that people
Yeah,
talk about, and I want to bring that up because the
yeah.
movie addressed it head on. Okay, so like I said, the movie started off with that going over, and when the captain starts talking about what's going on, he says, "Yeah, we have like I don't know, like 50 barrels of petroleum, 10 barrels of this and that or whatever." I was trying to like listen really hard at the inventorying of all that because it is a logistics thing. You only carry so much weight. If you've got a crew of say 10, you got to have this many pounds of meat, maybe in these different forms. So therefore, you have to have a certain amount of food to feed them. There's this big economic, logistical type of thing with it that bores everybody to tears. But when you have something like um, a supernatural thing, or even other films too, you're going, okay, what are the rules they want to go by? Are they consistent with it? And so here some people, like you said, they got spooked early on, and you're like, the cynical viewer would go, okay, this is just an easy way for the doctor to save the little kid. Oh, okay, fine, that's why he gets on. But he was an astronomer, and that kind of came into play a little bit too. And while
His
it was
dad was
convenient, there
yeah.
was one more layer behind it because obviously when the kid perished and the doctor is one of the last ones left, you're like, okay, you know,
Is he
there's
gonna
no
fly too?
heroes necessarily in
Yeah.
here too, but everybody kind of like would say something about, how do I say this? I think there was an undercurrent that they didn't get into too much about society and its roles. The kid was 9 years old, wanting to do it. The first mate, who was very competent and kind of helped the captain and everything, he was looking forward to taking over the Demeter. The captain himself was looking to just go
He
back to
retired.
Ireland
Yeah,
and have his
yeah,
place. So
yeah.
there was a little humanizing touch to most of the people in there, but they didn't go deep into it because why bother? There was nothing they were going to bring up that
No,
was going to
no.
help
Yeah.
them affect this movie. And to me, when I said it was this kind of a serious take, it reminded me of an old Ingmar Bergman movie called The Seventh Seal, where I think the famous scene is a knight. I think he washes up on shore or something like that and Stern to Crusades, and he's playing chess with death or whatever. As long as they're playing a game, death doesn't take him or whatever. It's been forever since I've seen it, but it's like one of the darkest, bleakest movies I've seen. And you might look at it and go, "Oh, this is a masterpiece." But then you might be going, "I ain't fucking watching that again." And then there's nothing, everything dark seems to be in the film. And you come away kind of like, what was the point in all that? And the point of it is that, there's certain things in life that, are good. You don't have good without having bad. And in this movie, I don't know how you approach it. Like there's no way you can make this a comedy, right? There's no way you
Yeah,
can make this a love story because you're
he's
going to be like, "Oh, they're fucking with me. I can't take it seriously."
Dracula is the ultimate evil villain.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah,
representation of that. So
yeah.
the movie's not honestly, here's the thing. The movie is not about him.
No, it's about people, the crew.
Yeah, and it's, are we going to, be as responsible as we can as human beings and do the best we can with what we've got and try to do it? And you see that there's no cowardly
No,
simps, hiding by themselves.
no. The
There's nobody
result,
turning each other. They're trying to figure this thing out as quick as and
the
best they
captain,
can.
the captain said that the whole resolve is we got to sink the ship and we'll all get a lifeboat.
Yeah.
But and I'm thinking like, well, with me and my knowledge, these people don't have that knowledge. I would have like lit the bar on fire and let the bitch burn during the day. let him die in there because try flying. Because I'm thinking like we know he has wings. At nighttime he I don't know what water does to him. Does water still whether it's blessed or not, like a pool of water doesn't burn him. But whatever. It's a like I said, it was the Titanic. I saw it too. Don't let go, Jack. Don't let go. And then she lets herself, she lets herself die. They really didn't. The connection, her having connection to Dracula, was kind of pointless because they didn't really play much on that.
Yeah.
It's just that.
I thought she was going to be like his agent. Maybe she was going to be the one killing people or something. I didn't want to trust her, right?
Well, the
Because
first
she
thing I
just
thought,
kind of stands around and says cryptic things, and I was kind of like, "What the hell?" But
when she
lady,
first comes out of the dirt, I'm thinking, oh, this is one of his brides.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
because he's coming after me, and then he's like, he didn't give a shit about her. He just wanted to get to London.
Well, they did tackle it, head on about, that, and I think Dracula planned it that way because they find out that, not everybody, of course, dies the first night or second night. He is pacing his kills, and she's
Yeah,
basically like, yeah, and it was just very depressing but cool to hear her say that, yeah, the elders, in town, this castle was around a lot longer than them, and they had made deals, and all that, and so he had nobody left to feed on, and it's like, that's kind of cool. You don't have to go in this great big backstory about, that this person in war killed a bunch of people and asked Satan for help, or any other backstory, right? You don't need that. And
Yeah.
she's of the age where you're like, okay, no love interest and all that too, but I still didn't want to trust her. And then when she came out with the gun at the end and was shooting and this and that, I'm like, I hope they don't like Mary Sue her and this and that. And then I kind of wanted everybody to die. I'm not gonna lie.
I wanted the chef to go ninja and just go after guys with the swords, with your knives. I'm sorry.
But the thing is when you see two people character-wise that you like, and then they team up and you're like, fuck yeah. Or they have like a montage like we talk about with our 80s action films here in the Extreme Movie Show. You know what's going to come next. Here, I want everybody to die, but I figured they'd probably leave it open. I did not like the when they're getting ready to go into the storm towards the end, the third act. Here.
Yeah.
There's very few people left. It does appear that maybe he turns into mist. I assume that's what they were trying to do, but they're already going in the storm. They didn't need to do it. That kind of takes away the animalistic part to it to me. But I really did like how at the end there, they just said, hey, this is what we've got to do. We're going to sink the ship. We're going to do that. We're going to seal everything up. We're going to leave them one path. So you saw them work together to doing it. And you got to execute it. And it didn't quite work out the way it did.
The thing is that they're going to sink the ship. I'm thinking like at this point, he already has wings. He'll just fly to the boat you're at and then use that,
But maybe,
because the dirt was, he didn't sleep in dirt. Or wait, no, he did have dirt in there. He said,
yeah, a bunch of the other ones,
but the other 4 friggin' crates from his shipment all had dirt in it too.
Yeah.
So what was the point of those? I thought those were decoys.
No, it's supposed to be resting in the earth that you're like born or created, and it's supposed to help make you feel better.
So his crate, sure, but why were the other 6 other ones full of dirt?
Because he was taking all the dirt he can, so it would be with him in his new place in Carfax Abbey over there in London. So when he set up a new place, he could take the dirt from his motherland with him to get set up.
I did not know about that. I thought it was just any dirt he has to be on. He just can't go in water.
No, well, there was something about your home dirt or whatever like that, and it's been forever since I've read the book, so I don't know specifically what they say in there, but that was kind of the idea. The whole coffin thing, of course, has gotten oh, they're beautiful, they're sexy looking things. This thing was disgusting, and it's like how a coffin should be,
Yeah.
But the ending, we've got to talk about this ending.
His had maggots though. That's the one, and
I know, but that was a nice little touch.
Yeah,
it made it seem disgusting.
The other ones are clean, and it had nothing in them. And I loved how the intricate locks they had on there.
Yeah, the corner lock was pretty cool.
So how did he get out? If those had corner locks, they just
because he had a corner lock on the inside.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Something
like that.
It's a 2-way lock. Yeah, like in a freezer.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, these are the locks on the outside. This is a handle to pull open.
But you can have one on the inside too. That's just redoes that.
Okay, but yeah. Okay, so the ending. Were we going past the storm, or are we going?
Let's take a minute to go to the storm before the end ends.
So
the storm,
the perfect storm.
It's a cool shot. They see a lighthouse and they know that's. I think they said something like that's the Great Cliffs of Dover. And I'm like, oh, that's
they said cool. Just shore, 6 miles. We're like a couple miles away from shore.
The captain's going to stay on board because his son is dead, and he's going to. Captain goes down with the ship. He's going to go out far enough where he can't recover. And they did talk the logistics of the fact that since he had killed everybody else and gotten stronger,
there's no more for him to feed on. If we're
exactly, so we'll starve his ass out.
Well, yeah, and he basically didn't need him anymore because he basically was he killed what he needed as much as he could, and now we're close to London. He doesn't need him anymore. He was just going to slaughter them all that night. So they said, well, screw it. We're going to stand and fight, try to trap him, but because they use the mist, he picks off the 2 guys, and then they're going to try to sink the ship too. The one guy, the first mate, ends up he takes a couple whacks the axe into the bottom of the ship. Water starts coming in. I would have loved this water's gushing in. That would have been better. This is like pee, and then Dracula goes up behind him. Basically snaps his neck and then starts feeding on him and just and then so Clemens ends up getting the axe, runs back upstairs. Sees that he's the captain. The captain was attacked. Now he's tied to like the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking like, is he gonna turn on him, attack him too now, or
No.
whatever? No, but
Because that's
instead,
one of the best
yeah,
scenes. I mentioned before the Dan Curtis version of Dracula from the 70s with Jack Palance in it, and some older books that I used to have of Dracula, the children's version of it. Some of the
yeah,
best photos were of this boat just landing there on a shore, and the guy's got his hands wrapped around the wheel with holding a crucifix or the rosaries, I should say, or
yeah.
whatever. I thought, man, that's really freaking creepy. It's just a nice little
So
visual.
he unties him. The captain says a few words, and he's like, "You gotta let him know. You gotta let people know. The journal and all this stuff. So then you see, Clemens basically and I think this was his last name was Clemens in this thing. I can't remember. I feel bad.
The doctor was Clemens. Yep.
Yeah, it was Clemens. Yeah. Anyway, he's like, I'm not afraid of you. It's like, you bleed just like we do. You need to you sleep. You eat. You're just a sorry sack of shit or something like that. I forgot what he said. Something. But anyway. So then you see, and he's like, he's like, I'm not afraid. And he's standing behind him. You see it, Dracula just whoosh, and he stands up behind him, and all this, you see him standing up, and it's just like that's when we get a first full shot of him. We've seen glimpses of him, his transformation as it goes through the movie. Now he's full bat, like you see on there,
Yeah.
and it's just like, holy crap, he's ugly.
He is.
Yeah.
He's atrocious looking, and that's a great thing. He looks disgusting.
Yeah. So I really appreciate. Yeah, you still had the rain and all stuff. You had the boats getting ready to the crash, the waves, go up, and Dracula goes after him, and he ends up knocking Clemens back. Clemens drops the axe. Just about looks like Clemens, is then picked up by Dracula, holding him by the neck, and then he starts carving it like a nail in his neck, basically getting ready to defeat. I don't know what it is, but they like these. I'm like, he's just scratching him, like try to turn him with a scratch or whatever. He's just playing with them, and he's like, and Clemens is like, get held up, and he's like, I'm not scared of you, and he's like, you should be really low, and it's like really quiet if and then it's just going to these guys might mouth up with the fangs, get ready to bite him, and all you hear, bam, he's like, son of a bitch, gets shot in the back twice by the girl. She's got the rifle, and then she goes to reload again, only for Dracula to come after her, and just see instantly, and and just wrap his wings on and starts feeding on her. Clemens, goes after her again, tries to help her, and yeah, it was just like it was a crazy thing. And somehow I forgot. I think she's the one that cuts the rope while he's attacking Clemens too. And
I did not like this because this is too comic bookish, actionish to me.
No, if it would have impaled him and killed him, that would have been dumb. That would have been your Mary Sue moment right there. But
True.
Instead, it just pinned him a little bit, and he's like, But then the boat comes ashore, and he's just like pushes it off, and then that's it. You don't see him anymore. You don't see the bat. Clemens and her are left on a floating piece of wood and drift, and he looked there. They're talking and stuff, and then you see her eyes are glazed over. And basically, when everybody's glazed over white, this means that they've turned and they're a vampire now.
Yeah.
Her and he looks over. He's like, no, you can't. It's like you have so much. He's like, people have made choices for my whole entire life. This is my choice. I want to die, and I'm not going to be like him. Disgusting. And her getting up, and then she's on the little boat, and it's like and the sun comes up, and you just see her burn and stuff. It's not as horrific as the other guy, the one who basically turned into a vampire, the original guy.
Right.
And you saw him just go in flames and just like until they shoot him in the head. But she burnt, So obviously, a couple of weeks have passed by, or a month, I forget what it was. And he's there in London. Clemens is in there, walking around. He goes to a pub. And he's just sitting there, and all you hear is, and it's a cane, and it's like you're like, oh shit, it's Dracula, because we saw the cane. You remember Clemens had found the cane inside the casket,
yes,
with the dragon on it, and he turned and he looked, and it's just a hand, and it almost looks like Gary Oldman.
It's not.
It's not him though, but but it kind of looks like it's like, holy shit, like they're saying it could be your interpretation. Basically, it is. It could be Gary Oldman's character with the cane and the hat.
That's people want to put all this cute shit into a film, and it's not that. But I know what you mean.
Yeah,
because
so
you see a side profile. You don't get a full view of him.
yeah, you don't get a full,
It's
so
in the middle of
basically,
this very busy bar, and he's only there for a split second. Of course, somebody walks between them, and then it's not there, and he stands up and he looks around and runs outside, and he
well,
sees the figure, in an alleyway, and tries to go after him,
yeah,
and that's pretty much it.
yeah, and yeah. So I love the fact that he uses that. And you see, and then he sees Clemens starts narrating, so he does his own narration. And he's like, "Yeah, he's out there. He's like, I swore an oath, and I'm gonna kill this fucking bastard, and hunt them down because now because people don't know, but I have to." It's like they're creating your own thing. You get to interpret what you want to. Maybe Clemens will run into a Van Helsing. I don't know if Clemens is even in the book like this. I'm sure they took their own liberties, but it doesn't bother me because I doubt we're going to get a sequel to this. And just take it as a standalone thing,
Well, this whole action sequence, like I said, was the worst part of the movie for me. I didn't like it. It felt forced. It felt like, well, shit, we've got to do something because we've been so damn dark and depressing up to this point here. Um, I just it really kind of didn't work for
Yeah.
me, and the fact that we saw about 10, 15 minutes earlier in the film the cook trying to escape on his own, right, and then of course that not working. That was kind of a cool scene a little bit, but them floating underwater, I immediately thought, okay, this is going to be a Titanic thing. What the fuck, they did not introduce any sort of romantic angle at all in this film with any
not
of them.
romantic,
And here you've got these two people left, and I'm like, why?
So I was kind of moved by this because
Go ahead.
I don't like people dying, like this. Him being a doctor, taking an oath, to save people. He tried to save her, and he was the only one he'd saved so far. Everyone else, and only for him to realize he's a failure. And then see her, and it's sad because in her story, I mean, that's fucked up. Her family, her whole village chose to sacrifice her to throw up. And now she's, even though we thought she was gonna be okay, and towards the end, now you find out she's gonna die. She's gonna die young, not as young as Toby, but still, she's probably like 16, 17. I don't think she was that much older.
I think she was probably 14, honestly.
Yeah. And just to have her life cut short for this, because this sick, evil bitch, son of a bitch, wanted something to feed on. So I was kind of sad about it. I was sad about the guy who had a daughter, the one who originally burned. The first guy turned. He said he had a daughter. He's like, I couldn't. They originally wanted to throw away because he was a stowaway. Throw it over. He'd be like, I can't. Right. He's like, I have a daughter that's the same age and just as pretty. And I can't do it myself.
Yeah, my problem with all that is two things. One, with the characters, they didn't get too deep into them, so it's hard to give a shit about when they died.
True. I
or
mean,
at the end, especially her. The big thing with Clemens is, and I'm gonna go out and say it about him being African American. As soon as you see him, and you go, "Oh, they're making an African American doctor in here. Why are they doing that? Is it because of this? Oh, we have a white female who's the unintentional stowaway. Okay, we think that's gonna be a romantic angle, but they don't tease it. What are they gonna do with it? Oh shit, they're both here at the end." At first I thought it was so glaringly obvious what they were doing here, but then what they did with Clemens that I thought tried to explain it away was when he goes on a little bit of a speech, and he mentions how he's only African American, who went to Cambridge, wherever it was, for a doctor, and then nobody would hire him, and then word got around in Romania, but my color didn't, so got there. I'm rolling my eyes going, I don't need to hear this stuff. It's bullshit.
Well,
but when he uses that, when he uses that as his justification as a man of science to understand how the world works and why he hates the thing and he wants to go kill it, I'm like, okay, I can kind of get that. And with the girl, it was like, okay, that's fine, but like Prince is saying in chat, I want, probably should have cared more about him or wanted to, or would have been nice. I agree, because he wasn't a very charming individual. He seemed like he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but not in a way that we could relate to or understand. And the strongest, most humane aspect to him was his relationship with the kid. And I thought maybe this would have been really, really great if, in terms of order of operations, who got killed what, maybe the kid survives at the end on his own or something, and then grows up to be a wise old man, and he dies saving the kid or something. So we're moved, and we want to see this kid go on and maybe become an adult vampire killer. Because all I got from the action sequence to the very ending, I was laughing, and I shouldn't have been, because I kept thinking, I'm still waiting for the sequel for Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which is not a vampire movie. It's a goofy ass movie, but I loved it. And this, I thought, had such a great feeling of dread that this last ending, I just go, okay, I wasn't really expecting this. I was expecting something a bit more morbid, not these two people that are young and maybe if under right circumstances they would be in love and have a family and all that, surviving at the end, and it looks just like Titanic, and she gets blown up because I didn't care about both of them. So that's why I thought this movie started off great, hit its peak in the middle, and then kind of, got a little weak at the end.
So the whole him talking about the whole race thing, it didn't affect me as much as watching Hell on Wheels, where they actually showed there's more. They were more racist towards blacks, and where the British we forget weren't as weren't as fucked up as we were, as far as racism. Blacks were more accepted, but I mean, then again, there's always gonna be racism no matter what part of the world they go into.
I mean, they didn't really get into it. It was just
that's
one
the thing.
speech,
Yeah,
so it's not like it's that kind of a movie,
Yeah, exactly. So they didn't become until like because I'm black, and stuff. It just says that I've had hardships. Like they all have hardships. Whether you're born poor, doesn't matter what your skin color is. But it didn't really. His little speech didn't really take me out of the movie as much.
Right.
It's just it would be different than a woman back then. If you had a woman saying, "Go out become a woman," I'm a second-class citizen. That was true back then. Yeah. But I don't know. Regardless, I would make fun to have Toby last, and you realize that he grows up, has a son, and names him Abraham. That would have been awesome. But I mean, like they weren't going to.
But that would have been cute and fun, and you can't do that.
No. This was supposed to be a gothic kind of slash, depressing horror. So anyway, but yeah, having him survive, you can have a loose connection or whatever, it's like, but it wasn't like, a Gary Stu, ending for me. The girl, regardless, I just as much as Toby dying, it sucks, man. It just goes, it's another death that was sad. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of horror movies. I can't say for verity why she didn't feel it. I mean, I can speculate all day, but I mean, I felt connected to, obviously wanting to feel connected to the girl from the very beginning. When he found her, they were just going to throw her overboard anyway. And then you find out, you see the teeth marks and all that stuff. That kind of I was like, oh, that's just messed up,
Right.
So that right there, I didn't see Clemens and her having a romantic connection. It's more like a friendship, a kinship, and he felt bad for her because especially when she told him the story. It's sad her character was the information dump, but that's basically what she was. It would have been more interesting if she'd been more than a feedback, would have been his bride, but she doesn't want to be. That would have been more compelling. And then using that their link, but they never should have even brought that up at all. That was stupid of them. It's like, I have a top, yeah, I have a link, and it's like, okay, so when he's coming. Well, so do we. We're on a small boat.
If they just showed her like doing something with the kid a little bit or something, rather than just standing in the background uttering cryptic things, it's like, I get it, you're tortured, but you said it perfectly. She was there as an information dump.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had her with Toby hiding inside the office, and then Dracula coming in, her like maybe using a candle, lit candle, try to hold them back. I wouldn't have done anything, but I mean. And then then Toby survives, and they're like, you don't know what happened to her, but then she's here walking out and she's fine, and having her be like been controlled by Dracula,
Yeah, I'm gonna compare it. Some people that I heard their reactions and descriptions, kind of when they compare it to movies, the first thing they come to mind is they go, this reminds me of the British Gothic ones, the Hammer films that I've always mentioned here on Extreme Movie Show. We've done some of those
where Dracula controls them.
Yeah, but the difference is there's definitely a sex appeal there, and they're a little bit more action oriented, I would suggest. And they were definitely cheap films made, but still made great money. Here, I mean, even though they left it open for a sequel, and I would still watch it just because. I'm like Prince has been saying in chat, and I pretty much agree with that. Is that I should still want to care more about him because you have this very nihilistic kind of movie with no hope or or thought about something, and I get it, and I don't have a problem with it, and I actually like it. But the problem is when you don't let us get attached to somebody who maybe
Yeah.
saves at the end and undergoes some big trauma, that whole idea that maybe, just maybe, then it's like, well, why would I go see a sequel for it? Because again, you pretty much you can screw up in the middle,
Hmm.
but that opening bit and the ending really got to leave you. You got to get hooked, and you remember what the last thing is that's going on, and it's just, it didn't quite do that here at the end. I felt like they had 2/3 of a really good movie here where I was like, shit, how are they going to top this? And then they just went, well, let's just put a bow tie on this at the end, and
Yeah.
it was so obvious, like I said, that initially that they had tried ignoring all the little things that we would think about as a viewer, and they didn't have it in it, whether it was the religion or some of the other things, like you mentioned, the brides.
Hmm.
Very smart choice. The director and the writer, they were one step ahead of us, right? But here at
Yeah.
the end, I went, this is just a Hollywood ending, and I
Yeah.
don't mean
Yeah.
a happy ending. It was just a
It's
goofy ass one for a franchise. And it's like, stop fucking being a franchise. Be a good
it,
movie first. You
and
know what I'm
that's the
saying?
thing, though. It went the same thing with Dracula Untold. They're setting up for a franchise, and then and so I don't know. It's a universal story or a proper picture. So I don't know if they're going to or not. But man, maybe they are. Who knows? I don't really care at the moment. So based off, I'm gonna say based off scenery, music score, and all that stuff. The use of CG. I really loved it, and for that part. Story, I give it a 7 out of 10, 7 or 8. 10 being the best. Same with but as far as sound, the music, the special effects, the CG, and all that stuff. I mean, I gotta give him it's almost 10. It'd be about a 9, like a 9.5. I loved it.
Yeah, it caters to what I enjoy watching, and we're nitpicking over some stuff here, but this is the kind of movie that I look at and I go,
Yeah.
if this were on like middle of October or down here in Florida, weather's changing. That
Yep.
means it might only be like 80 degrees or whatever like that, but it's definitely noticeably different. And you just have that feeling of fall going on. Does this movie have
Oh,
atmosphere and tone? Because when I
so
when I get a horror movie or a gothic movie, that's what I don't want. I don't want a lot of talking. I don't want to intellectualizing. I don't want a lot of religious theory
yeah,
and all this kind of
I
stuff. I just
oh
don't, and that's why all these jump scare type
you,
horror movies I'm not the biggest fan of.
so what have made this movie a little more interesting, more realistic me for me entertaining is if it would have been more towards like a colder, they actually see the breath coming off the sailors, when it's raining, showing how it's cold it is out there, and and just seeing the kind of like, and when the or washes up the shore, you
Hmm.
see the snow and all that stuff, and it's like a winter kind of thing. I always love that, because we all know that, like, when you're on a ship, you're freezing your ass off because there's nothing to block the wind. I would have loved it if it would have been much more colder, but then they're this in the rain. The gun guy's got a hat on. That hat's soaked. It's going right into his head. I'm
Yeah.
like, why don't you just have your hood up, bro? But story was weak. Yes, Verity really hate the story, but yeah, general feel, look, like shit, 10 out of 10. I said I love everything but the story.
And that's the thing too, because you're right. It's not really a story. It
No,
fills in some stuff. So you could argue, well, does it have to be a story? And everyone's like, well, that's blasphemous. Of course it's a story. You go from point A to point B, and this is like a circular thing. They started off, then they went back 4 weeks ahead, in time, 5 weeks, whatever it was, and then came up to the same night that we start off in the movie. So the
mhm.
pattern is set that way, but that's the thing is I think it's jarring for a lot of people because everybody pretty much dies, and there really isn't a story to it, and that's kind of why I liked it, because
Yeah,
when's the last time you're going to get a movie like that that's
yeah,
bleak,
yeah.
but
She,
serious.
she,
That's why I say, if you're laughing or joking over something, or you have some wittiness in it, it's not horror because you're not
mhm.
scared. Here, there's just that sense of dread through most of the movie until it turns into, like, an action film the last 15-20 minutes. Other than that, the tone's great, looks fantastic. I agree with
Yep.
you totally. I think
She,
it's a film worth
and she
watching.
says, "Oh, I say here, tired of the seductive Dracula." That's when I see clips and I look at the 1992 Bram Stoker or Gary Oldman. I'm just like, where's the monster? I haven't watched it all the way through. I've watched bits and pieces here, and I could never understand why people loved it so much.
Because in the 90s, and we
Because of Anne
mentioned this before here
Rice.
on an Extreme Movie Show, serial killers and vampires and
Yeah,
150-pound boys were all sexualized, and that whole mopey
yeah,
attitude in the 90s became a thing.
Yeah,
I'm serious about it. Silence of the
yeah.
Lambs was huge. People
I
sympathized with the bad
I
guy. They wanted to see a sexy vampire. They
I
wanted
yeah.
eroticism and stuff. And it's like,
Wow.
really?
When
Come
I think
on.
of Gary Oldman, I don't think of sexy vampire. I just think of old guy. But no. So no. But no. As far as I want the monster Dracula, like she said, I like this. Him, he's going from decrepit because he's been deprived of blood to finally, he's grotesque like this. Is a bat getting all his powers back finally. And then it's the end. You just see a glimpse of him. And shit, I would tie this into Jack the Ripper. I would do so much with this if they did a sequel for this. The Jack Ripper wasn't really Jack Ripper; it was just Dracula the whole time, feeding on prostitutes. I mean, seriously, there's so much you could do. You could tie into this. You could have turn into Sherlock Holmes. Same thing. Sherlock Holmes, vampire hunter.
Sherlock Holmes.
Dude, if we got Abraham, yeah, Lincoln.
First crossovers, and actually, I think the first recorded serial killer was around this time period as well over there in London, because they had some shitty areas. Yeah. In closing, I would say, yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching. I think part of what upsets me about the movie a little bit with the ending is because I thought it was very good up to that point, and it's not for everyone. I don't think it should be. It's very effective. Autopsy of Jane Doe was very effective for basically just having an autopsy in a room.
Yeah.
And that's a fun movie too. I wouldn't say fun, but it's a good one.
I will say this, so him going to London at this time where they have all the black, I don't think they have the black plague, but they had a lot of diseases, a lot of STDs. He's gonna be puking after each time he gets tainted blood.
Stop. I'm sure his metabolism can handle that, and that's.
We watched the whole Frankenstein Chronicles. You know what it's like.
Well, you know what? I'll bring that up because you and I usually don't do a lot of television together. Usually that's Professor Pixel and I, but we did do the Frankenstein Chronicles with Sean Bean, and that was phenomenal. Pixel and I are debating on what TV show to do next, and there's a chance we could do the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes from the early '80s to mid '90s with Jeremy Brett for a few seasons, at least the first season of it. They film a lot around there, and it just gives you that vibe, and that's one thing that you don't get in modern horror movies. You get vampires in like downtown LA or New York, and it's like it just doesn't make it scarier.
No.
You got to go back to this kind of stuff, and it gives you something to kind of.
Well, now we can't trust her anymore. She didn't like Frankenstein Chronicles.
Oh, not good to you. What about Penny Dreadful? I think we covered that as well, didn't we? Timothy Dalton, remember?
I did not cover I did not cover Penny Dreadful. I know you liked it a lot. I did not watch it, but
I don't remember.
I can't say Penny Dreadful is better than Frankenstein Chronicles, but
Dreadful.
Yeah,
they get them all together. They get a Frankenstein that's a part of the group. They get a werewolf. They get like a monster hunter. I mean, it's like, and Josh Hartnett's in it too. Like in the second or third season, I liked it. British just do really good stuff like this.
Like I said, I look at Penny Dreadful being the glamorized version.
It is a glamour. Oh, the Penny Dreadful! It's so hot right now.
You're seductive monsters.
I don't want to call this an emo Dracula movie because it's not. No. It's not. I don't know what to call it, but I'll still stand by. I think it's a definite watch. Dracula I've seen. It is. It's not for the fan of heart. Any other final thoughts? Anything you need to plug, sir?
If you're just looking for vampire movies and say you don't like, I don't like Underworld, it's too cheesy. This to me is the better version of say vampire movies. I like Dracula Untold, but I mean. I thought this was great, for being more of a straight up serious horror. You're like, well, yeah, everybody says they're gonna die. It's like, well, you don't know how they're gonna die, and that's the best part about it, because you think he's just gonna go run through them, no, he picks them off one by one, and then it's a free for all. He's like a fat kid at a golden corral at the end of the night. And they're like, "Sir, we're closed." And he's like, "No, you're not."
Bring me another plate, bitch. Yeah, I don't think I've seen the Underworlds. I think I might have seen the first one.
Underworld, she says, is a guilty pleasure for me too. That's the Scott Speedman one, where the werewolves and the vampires have been in war all these years. Secret War takes place in Budapest. it was kind of a romance thing, so maybe you didn't see it because of that.
Or as they would say in a horrible Eastern accent, Budapest or Romania.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, I liked the first two, and then it went the way of Resident Evil movies. And it became all about the girl, and that's it, nothing else. And I was like, this gets worse and worse as they go on. But, yeah, I mean, that one had a weak story too, as it is. It's just like, you're not allowed to have vampire, and werewolves breed. Having a hybrid, it's against it's against laws of nature and all whatever. But I love that when it depicted, there's a guy who plays Victor in there. You see him because he's in his sleep, eternal sleep. He's supposed to be wake up every couple centuries. He gets woken up early, and he's just all skin and bones. He looks like the alien from that we just watched the movie. What was that? The Jackie Chan one, or not the Jackie one? It was the kid, the Magic Crystal. How skinny alien was, like this. And then once he gets enough blood in him, he gets back to be looking normal. So yeah, like I said, this is straight up. It's the 1800s. They're on a ship. They're in the middle of storms. Anything can happen.
Give me the fog machines.
Yeah. Right.
And you know what? I'll say this.
Yeah.
It's atmospheric because they're walking around in the shadows. They let the scene develop. And they're all holding the lanterns and stuff like that. I geek out over that stuff all the time. I just do. It works for me. So
using
it's better than CGI.
Using a realistic ship that they built based on actual historian accuracy of these ships. Even though the Demeter was a fake ship, they got the ships around that time. What they look like, the merchant ships. And just saying, him crawling around like a little Smeagol, like a little golem, crawling through the hull of the ship, and you see him. And then he's gone. It's like, it's ugh. But anyway, so it's worth a watch. I would say that.
I would agree.
If you're not a huge Dracula fan, it's just it's worth the watch.
It's a serious, no fun movie. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't get any of those anymore, but this is definitely like that.
I had fun.
Yeah.
I was like, what's Hatchet Boy gonna do at the end? Versus Dracula.
You're gonna die.
I'm gonna swing, and nope. Denied.
Yeah, all right. Well, so guys, again, we talked about last week. We'll keep mentioning it as October approaches. Obviously we were thinking about the idea of having a vampire streamer where we talk vampires, vampire movies, what we like, didn't like, ones we've seen or haven't seen, and like doing that as we get close to Halloween because it's so much fun to just talk about these different things. What goes back to it, because I think for me, not speaking for you, RDV, I just, there's something about the fall when the weather changes. I love this time of the year, and there's something to be said about a scary story. And I don't mean just the random butcher who lives down the street chops up everybody, the silly generic stuff. I'm talking something, whatever. Whenever I hear, do you want to play a game, I just start laughing. I'm like, okay, this is a joke. I can't take Jigsaw seriously. Well, this movie has that serious tone to it, and I appreciate that. They were successful in what they were trying to do.
Saw was only good because for people, because in fact it was the gore font, which how this person's gonna die more sadistically. And it's joke as you rewind all the movies. It's an old guy giving organs to people who need him. No, like I said, this movie was fun. Definitely check it out. And as for October, I call it Glocktober, bro. We're gonna do some gun fu movies.
Yeah. Ed's asking about where it's at. He's gonna wait for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is one with Universal. Like Peacock, I thought was.
This might not be in the theaters.
No, this only came out on 2,700 screens, so I don't know if that's a wide release, but it's not. That's certainly not 3,200 up to 4,000 like all the bigger films. Barbie's crushing everything now. Yeah. It's a horrible time for it to come out. I think they didn't give a shit about it, and F you Universal for screwing everything up. Yeah, The Mummy with Tom Cruise sucked, but you could have had some balls that said no, make it one tone instead of all this other bullshit. We could actually have a friggin' franchise. So I'm kind of mad at Universal for that. But this, I think, will show up on streaming sooner rather than later, because it made about 6-7 million maybe this weekend if you count today, and it was projected to make maybe 6 to 10 roughly, $40-45 million budget. So it might break even, and that's without international money too.
I'll just say this: if they tried to put it in October, it would have been drowned out with Exorcist movie that's coming out and all that stuff. I think those are coming out in October. The ones we saw.
But it's a vampire film.
I know. Still,
And
people.
honestly, let me be frank. You know, Professor Pixel Young,
Okay,
20
Frank.
something that helps on here. He's probably like, "What's The Exorcist?"
Where
Just saying.
the Exorcist. I never watched it, but I know exactly it's a girl gets possessed. Her head spins around. She shoots puke out of her mouth, like 20
I'm a
feet.
fan of the Exorcist films. The third one's tremendous too. I love it.
See,
That's
I
good
thought there was
work.
only two. I thought this was the third one. The Nun movies. How many are there? 12. It's none of your business.
I will see
Uh,
this next Exorcist movie with the two girls. The trailer looks like they give it all away, and I will hope that it's good because was it Scott? What's his name? The actor in the third film who just died right after he filmed it or whatever it was. He's phenomenal. The guy that played Patton, George C. Scott, I think it is.
oh, I gotta ask though.
What's that?
The old lady who shows up in the trailer for this Exorcist, the new one, is that the girl who was originally possessed in the first one?
It's not the one who was possessed. I think it was the lady that was helping out the girl that was possessed. I
Okay.
certainly don't know the whole lore of it too, but there's definitely some carryover from Exorcist 1 to 2 and a little bit from those into 3. There's a big gap between 2 and 3. And I, of course, guessed there was an Exorcist TV show a year or so ago, and I never even bothered watching it. So I don't know if that sucked or
Yeah, like I
tried
said,
expanding on it.
I just get sick of Exorcist. Probably by itself was great, but then it just seems like there's 30 million copies of that now coming out. Look at this. We just saw the trailers. The Haunting in Venice. So now we have the Exorcist again, and then there's the other one, the Indian one. I think was supposed to be like though with the boogeyman. They got with the girls like and it's coming
That's the
after her.
Nun too, I think.
But yeah, no, there was the Nun. Then was it that one? No,
The nun is the girls' school because
yeah, the
your
girls'
baby
school.
breaks all the rules of
Sure,
the girls'
sure.
school.
But then there's the other one who goes to her mother. It's
Pretty
we need to
feisty.
offer a sacrifice because this creature is following her and stuff. Yeah, so there's like 4 of them that are just like demonic possession movies, pretty much. And got the point. It's like it's been watered down so much. Like I said, it's just like the slasher movies.
You're right about
I
the
lose
watering
interest.
down with the exorcisms and all that because it's a convenient jump scare vehicle. That's why again this movie, regardless of what I thought about the third act or what other people say, I think it totally worked because
It
it's
stood out.
effective. It looks great. It does what it wants it to, and it's different in that regard. He didn't just sit down and say, okay, let me make a one where Dracula goes around and just kills everybody. I mean he does, but it's not a Dracula movie. It's about the doom and despair that the
It's the
crew
ship.
go through
Yeah,
and the feeling that you have of that going through it rather than the attachment to the characters, which you might have enjoyed because the way they chose to do the ending. Doom, it would have been perfect if they just whacked everybody. Honestly, it would have been a consistent message, but that's probably too much for most people to handle, especially in today's movie viewing world. And based on the returns, not a lot of people went to go see it. I don't think a lot of people can handle a doom and gloom kind of movie like this. Honestly, that's why I think people were turned off to it.
And like I said, I'm just glad they didn't do more like the whole the race card thing. Imagine he had like when the crew member is like, "Oh, we got this," hard N word. That would have been like, "Oh crap!" Watching this movies, it would have been more historical or accurate, but yeah, I mean, you felt, I felt for everyone that was on that ship. I knew from going into this, like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. And like, it just seems like when they're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna survive.
But you know what?
It's like
you didn't know who was going to go next.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You didn't know you had an idea, and then people were coming back as vampires, and then like it's just Toby, man. Toby is my standout character in this entire movie. His relationship with Clemens, and then to the animals, he felt so bad. It's my responsibility to keep all the animals alive. Clemens gives a little speech. If Toby had survived towards the end, it'd been him and Huck versus versus Dracula with Clemens.
Take my money. I wanted the kid and the dog versus the vampire. When I saw the dog and the kid, I'm like, that's what I want to see at the end. I want that for the final battle.
Yeah,
I do. They could have milked the kid's demise better. Not that it was bad, but they definitely could have, I think, milked it or did it like in a certain order better. Because you know what? I give him credit for having the guts to doing it and not screwing around. I really do.
Yeah. For kids,
I really didn't think he was going to get it. I didn't, honestly.
No. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Hope you had fun with this. We'll be back again on Tuesday for something. I'm not sure yet, but keep an eye out.
Well, action oriented. We'll be deciding it here soon. What do you have going on your stream, though? Do you have anything before that?
Just a couple minutes. I'll be going reading Amazing Spider-Man number 21 on the Geeky Puppet Show, and then it'll be our second reading will be Fantastic Four number 1 from the very first one, the 1960s.
And next Sunday to be determined, but the pre-show before that, the warm-up is going to be Octopussy. We were planning on doing that tonight. There's some schedule issues that came up, so we did not go live with that. So I apologize for that.
Screw you, Publix.
Well, work comes first. I mean, we have to take care of our business and all that too, so we can have fun doing this. I just want to say thank to everybody out there that retweets us and lets people know that we exist. That's always really, really great. Looking forward to jotting down some more movies besides Byzantium that Princess had mentioned there too. There's we usually do a fall preview, and I imagine that's going to be coming up here soon, RDV. So whether it's horror films or action, the rest of the year. When we say fall, we usually mean basically from September-ish all the way through December, what we want to see, what we don't want to see, what we think is going to be good.
Maybe
we kind of
top
do
10.
that intermittently with it. Yeah. And top 10s, we've talked about trying to reintroduce that in some format as well. So until Tuesday night, guys, have a good night. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme. Extremely dead if you're a cast member of the Demeter.
Grr, arr.
Don't